It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, September 30th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that thinks preseason overtime is fun when you have a guy like Matvei Michkov out there.
Sure. I mean, it's fun to watch him.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can find our show over on YouTube. We're also on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Man, Matvei Michkov is making this preseason a ton of fun, leading the league in points in the preseason as of now. And I think, we talk about the preseason being meaningless in a lot of ways, and obviously everything gets reset, but I haven't had this much fun watching preseason games in a long time.
It's been a while for sure. And yeah, he injects a lot of energy. It's fun to watch him. I get it. I mean, uh, we also know that he's not going to get this much space when the regular season starts.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's fun to see what he can do.
Absolutely. We're going to dig more into that game against the Boston Bruins. We did have some news from training camp. Alexei Kolosov is in the building.
He was.
I think, this whole thing has been absolutely bonkers, but he did come over and was at camp on the ice on Friday. And I think that you know, he's looking to get into a game, and we'll see how this whole thing gets handled, if this is just going through the motions so he can go
Right.
back or it's
We see a
legit.
lot of
We just don't
reports.
know.
We really don't know. We see a lot of reports saying this is temporary. We see others that it's not. Like, we don't know. We really don't.
Yeah.
That's true.
So until we know more, we're going with what we got. Like I said, I think, if he was to get into a game, my bet's in Boston on Tuesday, but
Makes sense.
uh, yeah, we'll see if that comes to pass. In the meantime, Spencer Gill got his ELC. Good for him. Absolutely earned, in my opinion.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he's going to get it sooner than later anyhow, so you might as well do it now and announce it this time of the year. It's always good press. So, yeah, I think he's earned it.
Yeah, his rookie camp and his time in training camp was really good. No
It was.
question, he needed to go back to junior this year, but he earned that ELC. So super happy for him. The Flyers made some additional cuts on Sunday because that's when Fandom's training camp started. So they got to just like send a bunch of the guys that were definitely going to be down there. I think, for me, there's a couple disappointments here in terms of guys that I wanted to stick around longer. Of course, number one on that list is Ronnie Attard, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally not giving up on the guy, whether he's a Flyer or not in the future. I know how
Yeah.
it could be with defensemen, and it can take a little longer, and sometimes you just need that big opportunity. He's had a little opportunity, but with the club, but not much. Uh, so we'll see. I know it's easy to turn on players. I see, fans are just can be so quick about it, but they never leave room for the guy that takes longer for development. I kind of do.
Yeah, I think it's more like I'm disappointed for him and not
Yeah,
disappointed in him. It's
right.
like
Like, he
kind of the
hasn't played
way.
his best hockey, but he hasn't played his worst
Yeah.
either. Like, that's just the way it's been.
Yeah, and I think for me, the other person is Elliot Denoye. I think this is like a huge, huge year for him. And I think to at least get to the point where he was one of the last cuts going back to the Phantoms would have been like a step forward for him.
Yeah, the only thing he could do is have a great season down there now. Like, that's his
Yeah.
way of doing that. If he doesn't, he's on thin ice.
Yeah, everybody else on the list: Louis Belpedio, Rick Gardner, J.R. Avon, Massimo Rizzo, Brendan Furry, Jacob
Yeah, it all
Gaucher.
makes sense.
All makes sense. Of course, with Furry and Gaucher on AHL contracts, they had to go
Right.
down, right?
Yes.
So there's that. Now, turning our attention to this game against the Bruins, of course, with the Matvei Michkov overtime winner, I think what was interesting is that Michkov was on the left side, which is not his natural side, and I was a little dubious of that before the game, but he really adjusted well, I thought.
He did. I don't know if I would do that in his rookie year though,
No,
because he doesn't
I
have the
would
wall
not
play.
either.
He doesn't have the wall play in him right now. That's just never been a part of his game. Doesn't mean it can't be. So
Right.
based on that, I think that responsibility should be taken away from him. But yeah, as far as last night, that's fine. Although I'm going to point out that Michkov almost didn't get a chance to get that goal because early on, like a lot of Flyers games in overtime, they almost lost. Like there's always that thing with the Flyers early in 3-on-3
Yeah,
where
if they don't
the,
get the puck up front.
if they don't get the puck up front, they sometimes never get it back. And that was happening, but then it changed and that was good.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are talking about that stretch pass from Konechny, which
No, it
was
was a great pass.
beautiful, really great pass. So I just want to make sure that Konechny gets his due
Well,
on
it's
that one
true.
too.
Like I think that's fair to say only because with all the Michkov talk and everybody's like, well, he's going to
Yeah,
be the best player on the team. Well, he's not yet. Like Konechny still is, but the talk
yeah,
is all about Michkov and there's such an avalanche of talk about it that, yeah, I could see why you want to give him his props.
yeah, absolutely. I think that Luchenko centering Farabee and Brink was a really good line combination out there. And I know Bradshaw, who was behind the bench for this game, said something specific about Luchenko post game. That he's a solution oriented guy, that when things
Hmm.
go south, Luchenko can figure it out and get things back on track. And I really did notice that over the course
Hmm.
of this game. And I think, Farabee had some like not so great moments in the game, some
He's a
really
risk
good ones.
taker. He always has
But
been.
yeah, but like Luchenko was there to back him up as a
Right.
center should be in a
Yeah.
lot of those circumstances. And I think that is just really what you want to see from the kid, right?
Yeah, no, he's a good problem solver. I mean, again, I still wouldn't put him in the regular season, but I think he had a good game against the Bruins, whoever they were. There were some.
Right.
And,
Which was an AHL lineup
yeah,
I mean, there were some good guys out there, but like
not a
maybe
lot.
only a third of the top guys that I expected to maybe see
Right.
were out there.
Right.
So
So, but still, for Luchenko, this is still a proving ground, and he's proven it, and he is doing well, and he had a good game, and he is a good problem solver. All those things are true.
yeah, and Olle Lyksell, of course, had a
He had a
tremendous
great
game with
game.
2 primary assists, and I think, and he got significant
And he
power
got
play
this
time.
close to having a really good goal too on the power play. I thought it was.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
yeah, and I think people are really finally starting to see when he's at his best, how he can contribute to this team.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like good acceleration. He reads plays well. His two-way game is okay, but he
Yeah,
has offense in his game. The problem is going to be it's him or Brink. Like that's it. Like that's A-balls. All these other guys have no shot. They're all going to get sent down soon. And I thought A-balls was okay in that game, but he hasn't been good enough. And
yeah.
whether they're playing to his strengths or not, he could prove that in the AHL, and then maybe he'll get a call up. But at the end of the day, it's really between those two. And unless they're going to keep an extra forward, we'll see that they could do that. But it doesn't behoove Lyksell to kind of sit either, because he still is a guy who needs more NHL experience. So honestly, have I seen enough out of Brink? I have not. Would I roll the dice with Lyksell? I probably would, because he's a different kind of player. And I do think it's a different kind of offense than what Brink might have these flashes of being more creative, but Lyksell, I think, can get to the net where Brink can't.
Yeah, and I think he's just a little bit quicker with decision making
Yes.
over Brink. Now, I don't wanna make this an either or conversation,
No, I mean, I brought
necessarily,
up it
but
could be both.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show as we get into our nemesis of the week a
But I
little
will
bit
bring up the power
there.
play was still 1 for 7, Rachel, and this is a
Yeah.
results-oriented business, and you could tell me it looks better, you could tell me about the movement. Korpisalo is a decent goalie. He's not great, he's not bad. He's NHL average. You could tell me all those things, but at the end of the day, if you're still 1 for 7 against this Bruins team, it needs work. And the worst part for me was they told me they practiced the power play a lot in practice before this game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to get into that you could take away from this game as learnings, and that is definitely one of them. We'll get
Yes.
into more of that, the Sean Couturier battle,
Oh, yeah.
and more coming up next. Some of the best concerts of the year take place in the fall, and it's my favorite time to head to a show. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite part of the Gametime app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute super deals so you know you're getting the best bang for your buck. Best of all, they have all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout when you activate the feature. Also, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. On tomorrow's show, we will be talking about the game against the New York Islanders taking place tonight. I will be attending that game, so I'll give you reports direct from the arena. Plus, we'll have our usual mailbag segment on Wednesday, so get those questions in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, send us a message on Twitter, or comment on our YouTube channel. Now, digging a little bit more into this game and what some takeaways and learnings were, I think that your point about the power play is a really good one. And I looked at like the numbers for the game overall, and you look at the Flyers had 40 scoring chances for 18 of them were high danger chances. The obvious names, TK, Lyksell, Brink, Jinning, and Michkov really were like the top chance guys, and that bears out by what you've seen, but the Bruins had better overall numbers, expected goals for all of that at 5-on-5. But because of the ton of power play time the Flyers have the overall game edge in terms of all those key stats. But
Right.
you really have to look at the 5-on-5 in the
Right.
in this circumstance because you're right. The Flyers had so much power play time that it really skewed the overall sense of how the game went, I think, in a lot of ways. And the Bruins were really able to kind of take it to them in terms of gap control. And interestingly, I looked at some of the post game quotes from Korpisalo, and I always look at the goalie perspective, right? Because they see the
Sure.
game
Oh,
in
yeah,
front of them.
absolutely.
So Korpisalo said, the game management reads, they did a great job with the sticks and clearing, and which is all true. And then
Yeah.
Fedotov said, everyone struggled for the puck at the beginning. After the first half of the game, the speed went a little bit down and there was more technique and more strong plays. So I
I
think it
think
was
they're
really
both
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were both right. Um, what I saw though was while they were generating some really good chances and more chances early, and then Michkov scored, but then I saw the second unit doing almost nothing, and then I saw I think it was the last one or two kind of reverted back to the old power play where all of a sudden they couldn't get control of the puck at all. And it's
Right.
just, and so like, there's PTSD involved with this when we're watching this. Like, it's just because we've
Yeah.
seen all this before.
Right, and I think interestingly, to me, like Adam Jinning, who we haven't talked about
Yeah.
yet, him on pairing with Drysdale was fascinating to me just because
Yeah,
of
it was
their.
good.
Yeah, I thought it was good, but it's not something we've really seen much of. So I thought
No.
it was interesting. But Jinning got a little bit of power play time, and you could see one of his biggest skills is puck management at the blue line.
Right.
And, he'll take those long shots to try and get deflections or create an opportunity for the guys down low. He's not a skate in and take chances
Right.
guy most of the time,
No.
right? So I thought he looked really good in those moments. Zamula did as well, but the rest of the power play in that unit was a little discombobulated.
Yeah, there'll be a couple good passes, and I think everybody's looking for the low-hanging fruit, like, "Hey, that looked good, and that looks better, and it might be better," and, well, it
Yeah.
needs to be better. But the thing is
First unit was really solid in terms of their puck movement and creating
yeah,
chances.
yeah, that's true. The only thing is, and I had people messaging me this, and I had to tell them this, and because this is my belief. They wanna see that Jamie Drysdale rushing the puck up the ice and getting into the zone and then starting a power play, and I'm like, "They're not allowing him to do it." It's pretty clear because when he was healthy last year, they weren't allowing him to do it, and now that he's healthy again, he's playing the same way he played on the power play last year, which is good, but it's not using all of his strengths, and I don't think they're ever gonna use all of his strengths.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very clear that he's doing more of the blue line style puck
Yeah,
management
yeah,
and his
once they're in the
beautiful.
zone, he's gonna
Yeah,
be that guy, but getting to the zone, he could really
yeah,
be dangerous, and they're not letting him do it, I don't think.
yeah, that's interesting. I think it's a fair assessment and something to keep an eye on and see if they change and make
Right.
adjustments on that front, especially on that top unit, and especially as we get closer to what the actual team is gonna look like and what is that top unit gonna
And with the
be,
actual
right?
coach coaching the team, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'll be
Although
a
Bradshaw's
lot.
terrific, like, we all
Yeah,
like Bradshaw,
yeah,
like, there's nothing some like
totally.
him, I mean, a lot, and I'll stop the line there as if you know what I mean, so whatever, he's a good coach.
Yeah, that's, why I wanna see him on the bench over Rocky Thompson in these, situations, but,
Well, because of the
I think.
thing, I don't know if we brought it up on the show, but it was certainly brought up on the broadcast, and that is him giving instant feedback to the young defenseman is
Okay.
terrific, and that is
Yeah, I
something we
wanna talk
don't
about
see
that.
John doing. We don't see John doing that.
I wanna talk about that because that's something we have not talked about on this show, which I have
Right.
noticed over the last, several preseason games, which is something you talked about extensively last season was the
Yeah.
iPad. And the
Yes.
fact we have seen the iPad back on the bench with the instant feedback and looking at video and Bradshaw now mentioning it specifically, I think is very interesting.
Okay, but here's what I was told. I'm gonna give a thing here because the time won't match up, but we just did off the post. We just had Bill Meltzer on. I posed the iPad question, the almighty iPad question, and he said it won't be there when the regular season starts with John. Won't be there.
Interesting.
And it's like,
Interesting.
ugh, that's how I feel. That's it.
Okay. That is a very specific emotion
So this
there.
is like, yeah, you're allowed to teach in the preseason, but that's it. Then you can't do that.
Yeah. I do wanna mention, Noah Cates because I thought he had a much better game than he
Yes.
had previously. Much more noticeable, aggressive on the forecheck, in his usual style that had kind of been missing a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and again, there's the worry he's going to get put back in center at first opportunity, and so he's got to just be ready at all positions at this point. Unfortunately,
Right. Now, they had him in the wing against the
right?
Bruins,
I
again, which
know.
I like to see, and then his
Me too.
positive elements came out, and I was like, "Oh,"
Yes, but we know what happens if he goes to center. Then it makes it harder on him.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. But just knowing where Cates has thrived, I think is a really important thing.
Yeah,
And
and Risto
yeah,
looks good. Obviously, the hit
yeah,
was real good. Um, he just has to stay healthy. Like we know he can play
yeah,
defense. It's obvious, but he has to stay healthy, and he has to prove that.
yeah. But so far so good, I would
Yes.
say,
Oh, yeah. No, he looks
for
good.
him.
He's bringing those elements that the team needs, but I'm also gonna still bring up something we brought up on this show, and I don't know if it's a function of just preseason with John not coaching or now it's an organizational change, but they don't block as many shots. Now, as a
Mhm.
result, they're getting more puck movement, but also the giveaways seem to be higher because of all the extra puck movement. And so, like,
Yeah.
where is that gonna fall? I don't know yet until John actually coaches. That's the hard part. It's hard for me to comment on it because it could change overnight.
Yeah, now the Flyers had fewer hits and fewer blocks than the Bruins did. You had a bunch of AHLers like trying to go the extra mile, I would say,
But this
and
has
with
been in
all
the
the
last few games. This is not just this game. They've been
yeah,
down from their block shots and what they normally do, and it's been talked about on the broadcast. Like this is a trend for preseason, I think.
yeah. I will say the stats are probably skewed a little bit because of the amount of power play time the Flyers were on. Like the Bruins were forced into
That's fair.
blocking a
Yeah.
lot more shots, but the trend is still there regardless. I think that's absolutely fair to say. I think the Flyers were a little bit better this time on like the giveaway side of things. But frankly, everybody was giving the puck away in the first period. So
Oh yeah.
again, it's kind of
And
hard to tell.
face-offs are still iffy. They're iffy
Yeah. It's a game to game thing and it's entirely matchup driven at
because
this point.
face-offs do affect power play, and face-offs do affect like when you have the puck in the offensive zone and you need to score. They're still lacking some of goal scoring, and it could be because they don't win the face-off and get the puck. And so, like Couturier's good on face-offs. He's not what he used to be. So they
Mhm.
don't really have a linchpin face-off guy. Like Frost may be better than Couturier at this point. We'll
He
find out.
is. I think he
Yeah.
is.
And so like,
But
but they don't have that 60% Joel Otto kind of guy where he's going to take the face-off and he's going to win it more times than not. They don't have that. Not
yeah,
yet.
I think I think Frost is gonna be a huge part of the solution there, and then we'll see if
Yeah.
Paling can kinda get back up to,
What he was. He
what he
fluctuated.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he did not have a good night at the dot.
No.
It was
No.
like 5 for 10, 5 and 10 or something like
He
that.
actually, to be fair, he just didn't look good at all, really. I
No. Yeah, and that's why I was like, Lyksell had a really good game in spite of his line mates to some
yes.
degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's doing everything you'd want him to do to show he can make the team. I really
Yeah.
do.
And as a side note, Ivan Fedotov, I thought had a really solid first complete game out
He
there,
had a
especially
good
having to
game.
play overtime.
He had a good game. I do think with a little more skill facing him, though, like, look, you could talk about him standing tall, being on his knees or not, and blocking a lot of net. He does that. He still gives up the high goal, though, over the shoulder. And you get against the wrong team or the right team, however you want to put it, if they get him moving a little bit on that, that's going to be the part where he's going to have to plug that up. And so we'll
Yeah,
see
and
what percentage he can plug that up. That's to me, that's a key.
right, and especially it's like when the other team is coming on the rush. When it's a set
Yes.
play, I have no doubts about Fedotov whatsoever, but it's when other teams are coming up
Like the
on the rush
shorthanded
and he
goal was an interesting one
yeah.
because he had enough time, I felt, to put up a better defense than he did on that, even though it's 2-on-1. But sometimes you stop at 2-on-1. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think solid is the word
No, it
I
was a
would
good
use.
game. It was a good game.
Yeah. All right. We have a little bit more to talk about in terms of outstanding questions related to our nemesis of the week, and we will do that coming up next.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You know, this week I would take the Titans, remember the Titans, over the Dolphins because the Dolphins are starting somebody I've never even heard of. So that would seem like an easy one. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
All right. We didn't even talk about the Sean Couturier fight, so I want
Didn't
to
get
talk
to it
about
yet,
it.
but we'll get to it now, right?
We'll get to it now. I think, man, when a guy who like barely fights, and when he does, it's not usually a long one. I think this when you say pick your battles, this was absolutely the battle to pick here. With some
Absolutely.
like no name kid trying to start things with Matvei Michkov, you got to tamper that down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to mention these guys' names, like the guy who need line A and this. This was a
Hmm.
completely
Hmm.
unnecessary extra hit. He knew who he was doing it to, and he's a young player, and he knew he could catch him off balance and just like get us to mention his name, and I'm not doing it. because it
Nope.
was just trash. And yeah, Couturier did the right thing. He did it quickly. I liked everything he did. Now the question we all were asking is why wasn't Delorier in that game to kind of do what he's supposed to do in the regular season, because you're playing the Bruins. This is a predictable thing from the Bruins. It's not like, we could say, oh, the Bruins is out of character. No. This is in character. So why wasn't Delorier in there?
Good question, Russ. Because if he's around for things like this, what are we doing here?
Right. What are we
It's
doing?
the preseason, but
But
still.
against certain teams, who's going to muck it up? Like, it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Looking at our nemesis of the week here. Last week, I talked about the schedule for last week and facing the Islanders and Bruins. I was nervous about it getting too chippy. What did we just talk about?
Yeah.
So I think I had a fair reason to be a little bit nervous about that in both games, to be honest. Russ, you talked about the Sabres social media going a little too nuts over a preseason hat trick. I think you probably still feel that way.
I do.
This week, I think it's because we are wrapping up the preseason this week. There are 3 more games. I still can't believe we have 3 more games in the preseason. We have tonight, we have tomorrow, and then we have the final game on Thursday against the New Jersey Devils. And I think the nemesis are, how are we going to answer the big outstanding questions in these 3 games, right? Because I think looking at it, the big choice we have left is an 8th defenseman or Olle Lyksell, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what we're looking at here, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the right answer is at this
Nobody
point.
does.
But I think that's the question. That's like the framing of the roster question we're setting
Yes.
up as of now.
Would I like it to be more than just that? Yeah, but it's not going to be. So yeah, you're right. All right. So I'm going to talk about something we use every day of the week, 365 days of the year. And there's no standardization in pricing. Windshield wiper fluid. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
But think
Of
about
all
it.
the things on this planet I thought you would have come out with in terms of fluctuating pricing, windshield wiper fluid is probably at the bottom of the list.
But you use it. Everybody uses it all the time. My whole thing is this. You could walk in a dollar store and you could sometimes find it for the $1.25 because nothing's $1. You could walk into another store, it's $4 or $7.50. You could look on Amazon and it's $14. What's better? I have no idea. There's no standardization in this. Which one's good? Which one's not good? What's a ripoff? Somebody needs to do some research on this, and it's not going to be me because I just buy whatever I see.
I don't know. Talk to Consumer Reports, Russ.
I don't even think they do it. I don't even think they care. They seem to be, into microwaves and cars. They don't, and internet. They don't. I don't see it. I'm a subscriber of Consumer Reports. I've never seen it for windshield wiper fluid, and I'm just telling you, there's no standardization. Like you said, how do you know the difference when you go and buy it? What's your determination on it?
I literally don't buy it. I just get it
have
refilled when
to.
I get
You
my
have it-
oil changed, and that's it.
Okay, so the place does it, but otherwise you would have to buy it. So you're paying for the place to fill it up for you, the Jiffy Lube or whoever
It's
does
part
that.
of the service that comes
Right.
with the oil changes. They top off your fluids.
Right, but if you drove more, you'd be buying your own. So, that's all. That's my beef.
I really thought you were going to say Ticketmaster dynamic pricing. That's
No,
the
I
only
mean
one
that one's so obvious. That's like
I know.
basically that one is like, they have a stranglehold, and every time it comes up against Congress or something like that, nothing happens. It's the worst. I love the bands personally that have they only charge $50. There are some bands out there that are very good and they're like, hey, it's $50 a ticket. Even if it's a free for all for tickets, I don't care. Because now that everything's over $100 and sometimes the fees are more than the actual ticket price, which is disgusting, really, I don't go to as many concerts.
Yeah, it is a big one. Especially, I'll be intrigued to see how the Oasis ticket sale goes.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and there's one more thing. Go look for Taylor Swift. There's people getting their tickets stolen out of their
Yeah,
account,
I saw
and
that.
they've paid huge sums of money for these tickets, and I guess it's electronic theft.
Yeah, it's that people are getting their password stolen from other sites, not Ticketmaster, and people who use the same password for Ticketmaster as they do for other sites, then that's how it's
And the
happening.
tickets
But
evaporate.
yeah, yep. Looking ahead to tonight's matchup against the Islanders at UBS Arena. Since we saw the Islanders, they won a preseason game against the Devils 5-1. Their power play went 2 for 5. I seem to be pretty strong according to reports. For me, the big question for them right now is Oliver Wahlstrom and what are they going to do with him? Where does he fit in the organization?
You know, Patrick Waugh, Lou, they just run an old school kind of team, and he's probably going to have to play the fourth line. I, I you know, I, you know, Maxim Siplikov is a guy who I've been talking to some of their media about, and I think he looked pretty good against the Flyers, the game that I was at, and I would have him make the team because he scored 31 goals in the KHL. I can't even guarantee you he's making the team, even though this is a team that needs scoring. So to put a scorer on the fourth line, does that seem like crazy for the Islanders? No, it doesn't. They're going to ask him to score. We want you to score 20 goals like Daniel Sprong in 10 minutes of ice time. And how many guys do that? Seriously, it almost never happens.
As of recording just now, Makaniemi was sent down to the Phantoms, so that's a little thing of note that he won't get any more Flyers game
No,
time for the
that gives
remainder of the
Kolosov a
preseason.
chance to play.
Yep. So we'll see how that plays out as well. That will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow to recap the Islanders game, look ahead to round 2 against the Bruins, and see where we are with the Phantoms because they've got their first preseason game
Yeah.
on Tuesday night as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send us in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.